Premed office hours episode, December 4th. What's going on, my friends? My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, the founder of Medical School Headquarters and Mapped, author of the Premed Playbook series, host of the Premed Years podcast, all that kind of good stuff. I am joined, as always, by my amazing team of advisors here. We'll start with the one, the only, the one touched by God himself. Reverend Dr.
It's not me, obviously.
Former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director at the MD-SAS. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. I'm enjoying the cooler weather, and so it's not so hot in Texas anymore. But yeah, it's going great. So yeah,
Scott, as a man of faith, as a reverend, as a sports fan, wearing your UT hoodie there,
whoop, whoop.
I've never understood why people think praying to the great person above, whoever that may be, right, for a sports team is they think is worth their time.
Well, I think
what's up with that?
I think more importantly, is it worth God's time? That's
exactly what I mean.
Issue. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, it's one thing to pray for my safety, the safety of the teams
playing.
Let's do the best we can. Let's give it our all. Help me to be motivated. Whatever like that. But our win was, anyway, yeah. Not.
Please, I need to hit my parlay so I can make bank. But anyway, I am distracted already 3 minutes into office hours. Yeah. Also here, the one, the only, the great Dina Golini, former senior admissions officer.
Not touched by God.
In other ways, former assistant director of advising at Brown University Medical School. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, thank you. Yes, it's December.
It is December, and it continues to be freak out time for many students as they're going through this process, getting lots of emails, messages from students, from parents going, "Hey, 3.9 GPA, 515 MCAT score, only one interview. What's going on? What can I do?" Dina, what should a student do or parent do in this situation when it seems like there's no hope at the end of the tunnel, no light there?
Well, do what is in your control at this point in the cycle, which is, sending update letters to schools, making schools know that you're still interested, continuing with all of your activities in terms of clinical and volunteer work. And then maybe come January 1st, assessing and having someone, a professional like us, assess your application and see where we see any holes, and where maybe your story kind of was lackluster or your writing was lackluster, in case you do need to apply again. Because usually to me that's what happens. It's they're missing clinical. They're missing clinical hours. That's like the number one thing. They did not do a great job filling out all of their activities in terms of like telling their story in the right way, taking up the character count, have very minimal hours in things, and their writing was just not great.
Yeah. So applicationrenovation.com/session is a call with one of our advisors. Go over your application and try to figure out what's going on there.
Love it.
If you have not gotten in, let's go check that out. Scott, anything to add there?
No, I think that's very good advice. I think, my feeling about where things are at this point is you gotta, there's still a lot of waiting to do, lots of waiting, and you have to just,
Anthony was doing some waiting until just now. Got his first interview invite an hour ago.
No, I think he just did his first medical interview.
Oh, just did my first. Oh, got it.
Congrats.
I read it as Anthony. Just got his first interview.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. How did it go,
Yeah,
Anthony?
dude.
Would love to know.
Yeah.
Little postmortem. How'd you prepare for it? How do you think it went? All that good stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, as we wait for some more questions to come in for all of you there, we have our Black Friday sales ending this Friday. So go check that out over at medicalschoolhq.net for those sales. 24% off advising. It's typically the biggest sale that we do every year is our Black Friday stuff. So go check that out.
Deal.
Medicalschoolhq.net. Such a deal. All right. Brandon, I got into 3 medical schools so far this cycle. Thanks for all your amazing advice. Awesome. Congrats.
That is great.
It's awesome.
To me. So, the crowd goes wild. Fantastic. Starlight, Starbright, first star I see tonight. Should it be expected to hear? I haven't said that in like, I don't know.
Since you were 10?
I know. But pops, it's right there. It's amazing how our synapses work.
Right.
Should it be expected to hear almost nothing since it's December and the holidays? It's seeming like hardly anyone has been receiving any communication from med schools. I think stuff's going out.
Yeah, stuff is still going out. I would say like that week before Christmas is probably when a lot of people start taking vacations because schools are closed starting the 23rd. But schools are still trying to get stuff out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Josiah King, this question came up last week as well. So mission accepted, I think we've decided to move away from because it's very easy for me to look at someone who got in and go, well, I personally like this, but I don't know if the people that actually accepted you liked it, and maybe they accepted you for something else. I prefer to do the application renovation series where someone didn't get in and let's try to figure out potentially why. And I guess mission accepted is the same where you're like, potentially, why did you get in? But I think there's more value for someone who didn't get in than trying to figure out why someone did get in. So probably no more mission accepted. I do a lot of the mission accepted type stories on the pre-med years podcast. So students who got into med school, it's just not breaking down their application like the mission accepted videos. But I want to do lots more application renovation videos. Nobody's applying. I keep saying, hey,
apply.
I want to do it. So if you haven't gotten into medical school, apply for application renovation. We've changed the format so you don't have to be on video. I think that's one of the bigger hangups for students is just being so public and vulnerable. So I'll have you on during the recording so that we can chat, but your face won't be on there in the recording. So apply. applicationrenovation.com/apply.
Is it one of those where it's just a silhouette and you like
silhouette in the voice changer?
And
Yeah.
I didn't get in because I don't know what to do.
I've thought about literally doing that. But yeah. and then the like the light turns on by mistake and their face.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah. Call me Romaine, third-time applicant, 506. Thanks to Medical School HQ, I got 2 interviews, 1 DO, 1 MD, 2 acceptance.
Wow,
that's
amazing!
And so when I talked about the pre-med years and talking about successful stories, call me Romaine, like that is the exact story. I would love to have you on the pre-med years. If you want to shoot me an email, Ryan@medicalschoolhq.net or Ryan@map.com, either one. Goes to the same place.
That's so
fantastic. Jagar, as an Asian applying as a Texas resident, I'm going to compete with other Asians for a seat in medical school. Can I just? I hate this narrative.
I hate it. I hate it.
Talk about that, Dina. Right? Because I understand it. Right? We saw what happened at Harvard. We saw the lawsuits. We saw I think there is an assumption that Asian students are discriminated against
Yes.
because of affirmative action. Affirmative action is no longer around, right?
Yes,
So that's gone.
right.
But there's still this pervasive thought that Asians are put into a pile and they are like, there's too many of you, so we're going to wipe out half of the number applying and then figure out who we want. Talk about why that's just not
it's
the
just
right
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Number one, no one in admissions, whether it's undergrad admissions, med school admissions, law school admissions, has time for that. Nobody has time for that. Deans, directors do not have time for that. And nobody wants to get in trouble for that, right? Like you're just treading on nobody wants to be in that position. I never in a million years when I read applications, whether it was the undergrad level or med school level, ever thought, oh, this person's Asian, so I really have to be a little stricter with the way I evaluate. Never. It's you evaluate as an applicant and your credentials. And I think that this narrative comes from the undergrad admissions world, because there's so much of this thought in undergrad admissions, and I think that a lot of students are still thinking about it when it comes to, grad level admissions. And this is a Texas resident, so Scott, I don't know how you feel about this too, but it upsets me too.
Texas is
ridiculous.
Anti-DEI, so none of this is going on in Texas.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. There's no DEI in Texas. There is, we've been outside of affirmative action for 30 years. Yeah. And this has not happened. And Jigar, what I would say to you is you need to remove this narrative from your mind, because I agree with both Ryan and Dina. It's just not accurate. It's not the way it works.
Yeah. No. And to be fair, they are asking, is this a narrative? So I kind of went down the path that they're saying this is. They are saying, am I going to compete? Is this true? And I'm glad we're setting the tone here a little bit on the opposite of where they were asking the question.
Sure.
And I think part of it comes from this, and I'll add this chart. This is a PDF document from the AAMC. All of this stuff is available. You can go look. So this is table A18, and this is MCAT and GPA based on race and ethnicity. And we can look at Asian students having kind of far and away a much higher MCAT score for applicants and a much higher MCAT score for those who matriculated. And people will then take this data and go, oh, because I am Asian, I have to have a higher MCAT score. And that is not what this data is saying. This data is saying, hey, Asians happen to have a higher MCAT score, right?
For whatever reason. Yeah.
For whatever reason. And we can go down, right? And I played this game with a parent recently, and I said, let's play this game, right? Asian immigrant parents historically are very hard on their kids to do well academically. So they're typically very bright students who work really hard. Nope. And that continues to carry on through this process. And those parents typically, right, stereotypically, are the ones who are willing to pay for resources, pay for support, pay for tutoring, pay for whatever, because they want their kids to succeed, right? And so therefore, potentially, we see a subsection of students based on ethnicity who happen to score better on the MCAT and have higher GPAs. And it's not, again, the interpretation of this data should not be, you have to have a higher MCAT score as an Asian student. The data just says Asian students have a higher MCAT score. That's it.
You have to be a strong applicant, no matter what.
Anyone. Yeah.
And after the SCOTUS ruling last year, you can't see anything on the, the application side.
Yep.
The last part of that question, about demographics, of course, every school thinks about the makeup of their class filling the class.
Yeah, they want diversity.
they don't want 80% male and 20% female. Like, you want to balance that out. You don't want 80% international students, 20% domestic students. You want to balance that out. But to take it to like, well, we have 80% Asian.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So hopefully that answers the question. And ultimately my hope with the answer is to give Asian applicants and Asian parents the understanding that they don't have to meet some sort of like fake narrative elite level of academics. They have to be good just like every other student to get into medical school. So I love that topic. All right. Peanut butter jelly time. Would working as a doula count as clinical experience? Heck yeah.
Yep.
Great. Anthony, talking about the interview they had this morning. I think it went okay. A lot of the questions seemed disjointed. I feel I fit well into the mission. I am actually interviewing at Brown on Friday. So
congrats.
Any words of wisdom?
I mean, it's definitely, Brown takes up a lot of their seats with their own undergrads from the PLEMI program, which is the BSMD program. So they have a few early assurance programs as well. So at the end of the day, out of like a class of like 160 or something, there's only 90 seats left. So it's pretty hard to get an interview. It's pretty laid back. Yeah. I mean, I think just pay attention to, community health and what is going on in the Providence area. My suggestion to any student interviewing at any school, and Dr. Gray knows this, is read the CHNA, read the community health needs assessment for that city or town, and know the town, know what's going on, like the leading cause of death and where the health priorities are. And yeah, Brown's a great place. It's a great community.
Awesome. Congrats, Anthony. Yeah. Come back next week and let us know how it went. Med life as a non-traditional, our non-traditional students expected to have a lot of activities given we spend most of our time balancing undergrad, working, taking care of families, etc. Scott, I had this conversation with a former director of admissions it was me, the former director of admissions, and the student who was a non-traditional student. And they said, look, we understand you're a non-traditional student, and this school happened to like non-trads. We don't expect you to have the same level of hours and commitment availability as your traditional counterparts, because we understand that you may have a job, you may have kids, you may have family, etc. Talk about, again, that holistic mindset of the application where being a non-trad might come into play here. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Oops. Is that better?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? So no, I think it's definitely a holistic process. We throw that word around a lot, but they're looking at everything, and they're looking at everything within the context of who you are and what your life is all about. And this is the same thing that we talk about when we talk about athletes. For example, another good example is athletes who have a huge commitment of time. I'm talking about varsity athletes, have a huge commitment of time. I'm talking about things like the military academies, where applicants that come out of the military academy, you have to take within context what everything that they're doing, in addition to the studying and stuff that they've got going on. So everybody is approached not only with what our standards are, but also with what the context for their life is, and what that's all about, and what they're doing, and how that plays into what our expectations are as a medical school, what we want to see. So, I think it's about context. That's the key. And the medical schools really want to look. Now, they're looking at both of those things. I want you to be clear about that. They're looking at your context, but they're also looking about their expectations about what they want to see out of students. So you can't say, I'm a non-trad, I have a full-time job, I have a family, so I don't have any clinical experience. That's not going to make it. That's not going to make it. That doesn't match with our expectations. Now, I may look at yours and say, well, there's limited clinical experience. There is some. It's not as much as we would see from traditional type students, but we understand that, the context here. So it's a mixture of those two things. I think that they're going to be looking at.
Yeah. Love it. Hopefully that helps. Is there a place calendar link that will list I'm assuming these shows? Yeah. Aside for Wednesdays at 1, when you or the others will be answering questions. Yeah, typically it's just here for now. So we'll have workshops and other things that we promote. Premedevents.com is the site there, but our website's undergoing some renovations. So check that out. Dina, it's a question for you.
I always get these. Come on.
I mean, there's a reason why you get them. Do medical schools care about their prestige? Right. And so we were chatting recently that some institutions may have this as part of their rubric, or may have this as part of their bias, whether it's official or unofficial. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think that there are some institutions that do place more emphasis on the prestige of your undergrad institution. There's one of those schools in Florida that does that. And I mean, I think, so two sides to this, right? Like if you're looking at a transcript for someone coming out of a very competitive school, like Princeton or UPenn or Hopkins, right? Is that more difficult than someone coming out of a school that's lesser known, right? That has a higher acceptance rate. And yeah, I mean, right? I mean, for the most part, yes, but it's all what you do at the time that you're there. You're also getting readers that don't necessarily know about college rankings. So you get doctors who sign on to help read applications, faculty, doctors during the cycle. And there's no assumption that person knows anything about undergrad admissions and rankings of colleges. They're just evaluating you based on what they see, how hard you worked, what your GPA is, your transcript and upward trend, etc. So you can't worry about that. And you can't assume that medical schools are going to place emphasis on that.
Yeah.
Did I say that diplomatically?
Very well. Very well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would question is the assumption that does going to Princeton mean that your education's harder than going to a state school. And I don't know if that narrative flies anymore with how connected the world is. Sure, 30, 40 years ago when like the professor for physics went to Princeton, because I don't know with how distributed information and knowledge and everything is nowadays, if that stands up. And I would love to know, like, is there any way to objectively determine that? And I probably not, because it's going to be a really hard thing to know.
Or are they thinking of it was more selective? Like you're in the 1% of people who got into this school.
Correct.
Right?
Well, that's getting into the school, but does that mean the education's harder? Right? Getting into the school. I think what you're saying is it's a shortcut for the admissions committee to select who they believe are going to be highly competent students. Because they were able to get into a highly selective school, there's already a level of academic ability assumed. Right? Not that the education's harder at the school, but this student gives me some comfort that they're going to do well in medical school because they were able to get into X prestigious institution. So I can understand that as a kind of a logical shortcut for them as they're making their decisions. I can jump on board with that kind of assumption.
And let me add to this conversation just a couple of things.
Nobody asked.
Interesting.
Just kidding, sir. Keep it going. We love you. What do you got?
Okay. Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, I will say,
God's going to strike me down.
This was, granted, this was, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But I did my doctoral dissertation on this very topic of performance of medical students on both USMLE as well as in academics in medical school based on where they came from in their undergraduate institution. And what I found when you looked at undergraduate institutions from the perspective of their selectivity, from the perspective of their research orientation or not, from the perspective of whether they're public or private, all of these, in addition to a few others, all of those, when I looked at all of those, the result was that there's no difference in terms of how they perform in medical school or on the USMLE. Zero difference.
Love it.
Statistically speaking.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
And I'll add one more thing. And then we can move on.
Do it.
Who's determining the prestige? Because if
U.S. News and World Reports.
I was just going to say, if schools are using U.S. News, and I keep freezing. I'm not sure if I'm freezing on your end. If they're using that, many schools have pulled out of that.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily the best indicator.
Yep.
Moving on. Starlight. Becoming a part-time caretaker of a family member who suffers from dementia has taken the place of an extracurricular activity that I projected on my application I'd be doing. I've been traveling between 2 states, working to help my family due to insurance issues with home health coverage. Could this potentially be in an update letter to schools explaining my situation? I need some more info, Starlight, because I'm not really sure what the question is.
Well, I think what she's saying is that she projected that she would do certain things on her application, and she's not going to be able to do those things. Does she need to let the schools know that this has happened? And
here's my problem: is I'm a terrible reader, so I just glanced over the fact that yes, this is like they put on the application they would be doing X. But that has since changed because of taking care of the family member. Got it. This happens a lot, right? It's not uncommon for assumptions to fly out the window when life happens. Do you think there's a big need
I do.
to contact the schools?
I absolutely do. And I think any change, especially from those projected things, for whatever it is, if that changed, like if you said you were going to take microbiology in the spring and you couldn't because of whatever reason, you need to let the school know I can't, or I'm not able to take molecular biology or micro, whatever, because I've had medical schools in the past who have held students accountable for that. And so you said, what we did is we evaluated your application based on certain things. Yep. And now we find out later that those certain things weren't accurate.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to update schools if there's a change. And I'm talking about not little minuscule, nothing of a deal, but I think, an activity that you said you were going to do or start and you're not able to do it, as class that you were going to take, stuff like that. My suggestion would be to update the schools about that kind of stuff.
Okay. So like projecting out 100 hours and getting nothing, not projecting out 100 hours and only getting 90.
No, correct.
So bigger changes that's correct. Are affected. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Good luck, Starlight. It's great that you're able to help and take care of your family member.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of piggybacking on the undergrad prestige to medical school, residency to do residencies care. So I'll answer this one because I've looked at the data on this, and the data, take it for what you want. It's survey data of residency program directors, and they say that medical school is much lower on their list in terms of what they care about, what medical school you go to. This was pre USMLE step 1 going pass fail. I don't think there's been much change because all of the weight of that has just moved to step 2. So I doubt there's still much increase. One of the things that I like to do, and I was actually doing this yesterday with kind of a lay person who was asking questions about residency and medical school and all this stuff. I like asking the question to someone who thinks this is a narrative, and say, okay, if you think going to a top medical school is going to be impactful for your career as a physician and the residency choice and where you can work, let's play a game. In fact, let's play a game now because there aren't many questions here. Scott, name a prestigious, what you would think a top academic, if we want to say that, medical center, medical institution.
UT Southwestern.
Okay, so we'll say UT Southwestern. I think that's a little biased. I don't know if that'll be first people's thought. All right, so we have UT Southwestern. I'm going to share my screen here and bring that up. Dina, what is a prestigious, competitive specialty?
Orthopedics.
Ortho. My love. All right. So we go down to orthopedic surgery. Okay. What I like to do is I like to look through the faculty directory.
Yeah.
Who are these people that are in this prestigious specialty, quote unquote, right? Competitive specialty at a quote unquote prestigious institution. Where are they coming from? Because this is the answer of,
this is great. Yes.
Does it actually affect anything? I don't know if I've told you guys, I do this exercise with students. I do it in academy a bunch. So let's look, and sometimes they make it hard to actually look easily at everyone, which they do here. They just list them all like this. All right. You searched for A. No, I didn't. I clicked on search all faculty, but it just goes to A. All right.
You can take a sample.
No, but this is
that's just generally
just orthopedics. Yeah, that's just everyone again. All right, so let me see. Of course, they don't make it easy.
Sorry, I picked a bad school.
Well, yeah, obviously they're not prestigious if they can't even figure out how to.
Right.
All right, here, faculty for here. I was just clicking on the wrong thing. It was a subsection here. All right, so let's look at why is. Let me zoom out. Zoom out. Zoom in. All right. Let's look at Robert Bass. Hopefully it goes pretty quick. All right. Education. UT Southwestern. Residency. University of Iowa. Fellowship. University of Cincinnati. Obviously, UT Southwestern is a great medical school. I don't think many people would call University of Iowa a prestigious program. University of Iowa is fantastic. Right. Let's look at Ann Golden. UT Southwestern. Hey,
I would love to compare this to a private institution.
Yeah.
After this.
And obviously Texas is Texas. So there's some bias here with just people who are from Texas who like Texas and are going to stay in Texas. Good medical school. Again, University of Iowa, Wash U. Good school there. Let's go to ortho oncology. Education, Baylor, another Texas school. So obviously some homegrown talent in terms of just the state of Texas, which again makes sense for Texas. Tulane, again, not considered super prestigious. Gen Surge for their internship. I don't like how they list that. That's weird. They don't have their residency on there. It's just the internship. Oh, look at this. I can't be a DO and an orthopedic surgeon.
Right.
Well, apparently you can. So I like doing that for MDDO as well. So foot and ankle, UT Southwestern. So obviously, again, super huge bias for in-state stuff there. But do this exercise, right? At the end of the day, the goal is to do this exercise and just look and see. And I think it'll help you as a student understand that where you go to medical school, where you do your residency, for medicine in this country, for the large percentage of careers and programs and institutions and states, you will not be limited in what you can do. The limitation will be you as a person and your performance and your evaluations, not the school name, the residency name.
Right.
So very, very different.
Great lesson.
Very different than I think, right? And I'm not a lawyer, but from everything I know about the legal field, if you want to go work at a top law firm in New York or LA, you need to go to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or whatever, right? You need to go to those top institutions. So very different process.
It's the difference between the good side and the bad side.
It is. So, all right, this question, what type of undergrad school should we look at? My statement is always pick a school where you think you will thrive.
And you will be happy.
100%. 100%.
And it's cheap. Save that money. Call me Romaine. Is it okay to quit my medical assistant job before I begin medical school in 2025? I want to spend time with loved ones, pursue hobbies, get another job that pays a lot more. Scott, I think this goes to what you were just saying. If the school gave a conditional acceptance, right, which all acceptances are conditional, with the assumption that this person was going to be doing X, Y, or Z throughout the application cycle, is it okay? Should they call the school and say, hey,
I would.
You offered me acceptance. It's amazing. I'm coming. But now that I'm accepted, I would love to spend some time with family. Is that okay?
Yeah, I would definitely call the school or email them and just check with them. You know, they've made you an offer now. I think it's just authentic and vulnerable for you to say, I just want to check with you. And so absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. The great Bill Clinton in our hello.
Hello.
Say hello to the missus. Will it be better to do an MD PhD or do a PhD after med school?
This is confusing.
You almost never will have time to do a PhD after medical school because you're going to do residency and then you're going to start working because you're going to have to start paying off those loans. So it's a very different process. Lots of people do a PhD before medical school, oftentimes because they didn't know they wanted to go to medical school first. So. Vivian, is it a red flag if I had a freshman science GPA of 393, sophomore 386 or 36, and 4.0 for junior year? Where's the red flag? Is the red flag in the room with us?
Vivian.
I love this is just part of the culture of perfectionism, of expecting perfectionism or thinking that students have to be perfect to get into med school. So perfectly normal to see some dips once you get into some higher division science courses and redirect your study habits and skills and learn and doing great.
Yep. Good work.
Great job, Vivian. Yeah. Again, I've had the banner going on the bottom, a little ticker there. Black Friday sales ending on Friday. So go check that out. Interview prep, essay editing, full application cycle if you want some, I call it hand-holding, not in a bad way, but some hand-holding, some guidance through the whole process. All right. So a couple other questions here that I missed. Taylor, thank you so much for sharing the perspective. So we're talking about the affirmative action stuff earlier, right? California hasn't had affirmative action for 30 plus years. So it's, it has worked. Love this. We were talking about all the affirmative action stuff earlier. People believe they are being compared to others. It's the idea that takes them to this thought process, but in reality, they are being compared to themselves. I love that. Right? Just focus on yourself.
Are you at your best? And I think that brings up a good point. Like I've met with a few students recently who have asked, like, am I ready? And no, like some of them weren't ready. They were missing things. And do you want to go through this process knowing that you did not send the best possible application and activities imaginable? Like to go into it knowing you have a deficit or you have no clinical experience, you're not really setting yourself. Of course, you're going to be compared to other people because you're not really setting yourself up to be competitive.
Yeah. I will often use that sort of language with students when I'm meeting them with a consult. Am I ready to apply? I'm like, look, this is a potential red flag, a gap in your application. Yes, compared to other people and expectations. So you have two options. You can certainly apply. You can apply knowing you have this deficit and you just want to apply anyway. That's great. You're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of money to go through this process, very likely still needing to apply again. Or you can just wait, fix this deficit, make your application stronger, and apply with a stronger application. And when I put it in that way, they understand that I'm not telling them, no, you're not going to get into med school. I'm telling them, yeah, I have some concerns here, right?
Yeah.
So it's
and that confidence shines through on an application. You don't have as much experience to tap into, to write stories about, to share experiences about.
Yeah. Yep. Dylan, any tips for Casper or Preview? Oh, my favorite tests in the world. Scott, you were talking about Casper, the friendly ghost, earlier. You want to take, how do you tell students to approach these situational judgment tests?
Well, I think you approach them differently. Casper is very different than Preview. Preview, obviously, Preview is a standardized multiple choice question test, and Casper is a lot different than that. It's you've got to do things typing and really in a more extensive sort of way approach the dilemma that they're talking about. So I think you approach them differently. Casper, I think my suggestion is really to do the look at the resources they have on the Casper website. You can do a sample test kind of thing and kind of see how that goes. I think the key for Casper is to try to just not you can't see it as there's a right and wrong answer. That's not really what it's all about. They're looking at the process that you're going through to make a decision about what you will do in that particular scenario. And so I think what you want to really just think about is let the include in the stuff that you're doing with Casper the ideas of this is why I'm looking at the range of things I might do, and this is why I'm doing this. How did I think this out? And spell that out as opposed to just this is what I would do. That's the way I typically recommend students to handle the Casper exam.
Yeah. I have been saying a lot lately. The Casper is a test about thought process, and Preview is a test about conformity.
Yeah.
Because it's scored by faculty members and people, and they expect you to behave a certain way. And there is obviously some expectation of professionalism and stuff. So I understand some of that, but there's just no flexibility in the ability to say, well, here's my answer based on my lived experiences. Therefore, I think differently than you, and we can talk about it. And Casper allows you to do that, but Preview doesn't.
Yep.
Oh, all right. MedLife, if we aren't able to find any research opportunities, does independent research have to be accredited by our universities? I don't know.
I don't know what that means.
I mean,
Yeah.
you listing that as like a hobby or other?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I think the problem with that is that, if you're doing independent research, which I'm assuming what you're talking about in independent research is, I'm just going to think of some project I want to do and do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's going to be very valuable unless you're brilliant and out of it comes publications and stuff that validates what you're doing, which I would say as a student, that's unlikely. But I mean, I guess it's within the realm of possibilities. But I think that I just that seems a little, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm confused a little bit about how you would do that.
Yeah. Jason, how do you prepare for an interview? By using our Black Friday sales and getting a mock interview with our amazing team. And
Practice.
by reading the wonderful book that's hiding under all of them, the Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School Interview. Get it wherever your favorite books are sold. So practice. Yeah, Dina, talk about practice. What does practice look like? Who should they be practicing with? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I just practice with professionals. I think it's very different to practice with, say, one of us who has been on the admission side and been through interview day. A lot of students will practice with family members, and that's great to just get some vocal practice, but it's not like that's not like formal practice. And then a lot of students will practice with doctors, and like any practice is good practice, but it's important to practice with people who've been doing this and who have been on, the pre-med side, the admission side, and practicing for different kinds of interviews. So like with us, practicing for, say, an MMI will emulate that MMI for you in terms of like putting a timer on. At least I do that. I put a timer on as if it's a real MMI and giving you different kinds of questions, ethical-based scenarios, tell me about a time questions, and other things like, your background. What are you wearing? Are you looking at the camera? Are you projecting things in the right way? Are you playing like with your hair the whole time? Are you saying the word all the time? Just things like that. So I think the more practice you get, the better.
Scott, it's Scott and I's biggest problem is just playing with our hair too much.
Yeah.
So distracting.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people I do mock interviews with, and it's an issue. And so the suggestion is on interview day, you tie your hair back and it's gone and you don't have to worry about it,
Yep.
And I say this with almost tongue in cheek, but I had a mock interview with a student recently, and said a lot, and so I counted. I said how many. I asked a question, and then I counted during their answer how many times they verbalized and it was 25 times in that one answer.
Wow.
And I just said,
I wonder.
a problem.
We should think about, obviously we need some waivers and talk to legal about this. They make like for habit changing, they make bracelets that will shock you. I wonder, like, people sign up for a mock interview, we send them this thing, and then every time they say we zap them. So they're like, oh shoot, ow. I think that'd be funny.
Yeah. Kind of like a dog shot collar,
And it's at the end of the day, it's Pavlov. Gotta get rid of it.
Jason, you want to practice. The worst thing is to go into an interview and not feeling prepared or being prepared for the kinds of questions you'll get. That's the issue, right? You may think that you can answer questions, but what kind of questions are you practicing?
Yeah. At the end of the day, obviously, doing interviews with our team may not work into someone's budget. If you're going to do it, read a book, go onto our YouTube channel. We have a new series. Again, we believe in all of the content that we make to help as many students as possible. So we have a series called the Mini Mock Interview Show, where we are interviewing students for free. The students aren't paying us for them, so that we can make content and we put it out on YouTube so you can learn from that. And so go watch those videos, go see that feedback and understand the feedback that we give. And then when you go and practice yourself, record yourself, right? We all have camcorders, right? Video recorders in our pocket with phones these days. Set up a tripod and record yourself answering, and then go back and watch and critique yourself.
Yep.
All right. I got time for one more question here. Let's go to this. This is a common question from Ben. I haven't heard from a school about 10 weeks after interview. Should I reach out through phone or email? This is often a don't call us, we'll call you. Ideally, they should have been told at interview day, here's our process, you'll know within X, Y, or Z. So either Ben blanked out because he was so focused on the interview that he's like, all that information just went through and didn't process. Ben, here's where I would probably, one of the few times I would recommend going to Student Doctor Network, going into the school specific threads and saying, hey, what's the typical turnaround time for being notified of interview decisions? And they may say 3 weeks. They may say, oh, they don't tell anyone until March. So it really just depends.
Which there are some schools that don't give you answers until the end of January, February, March.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, friends. With that, again, medicalschoolhq.net for interview prep, essay help, full application cycle stuff. If you're a parent, you have questions about our services, you sign up for a free consult, so you can ask us questions about how we can help. Black Friday sales end Friday. And have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Scott. Reverend Dr. James Scott Wright, Dina Golini. Appreciate you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.